Hi, everybody. Eric Bailey, Eli Lederman. It's week one of spring practice. Eli and I had a chance to go watch Oklahoma's first 45 minutes of their first spring practice of the 2023 season. It was neat just being out there on the field. A lot of new faces, a lot of new coaches. We saw Seth Luttrell for the first time, got to see Jackson Arnold, see a lot of the newcomers, the portal guys, the freshmen. It was just fun being around football yesterday, Eli.
It was, and it's such a different vibe from last spring. Obviously, then it was also new. Brent Venables had a new staff, so many new players, everything in the aftermath of Lincoln Riley's departure that showing up yesterday and it just kind of being there being continuity a year later. There being a lot of familiar faces a year later, most of the same staff. In fact, all but one back from last spring. It felt maybe more settled, more like that foundation was set. And I think that's all Brent Venables could ask for. There's obviously so much to improve upon from last season, but the vibe yesterday in Norman just felt very like back to business, and I think that's what you'd want to see if you were an OU fan.
I had a chance to watch Jackson Arnold, who was wearing number 10, getting some reps with the quarterbacks. It's interesting. You always watch the order of what the reps are like. Dylan Gabriel was first, Davis Bevel was second, and then Jackson Arnold was third. I don't know if we're going to maintain that through the whole spring or not, but that's how they started. But Jackson Arnold looked like he had great touch on his balls. There's only so much you can really break down when we only got to watch 45 minutes, but it was just fun seeing just his raw ability, just throwing the football, looked good. And we had a chance to talk to Jeff Lebby after practice a little bit about Jackson, and we've talked to Lebby a lot about Arnold since his signing. And what did Lebby want to see? He wanted to see depth in that quarterback's room. He really thinks Jackson Arnold brings that depth. He needed someone to really push those guys. And we talked about it before. The OU Texas game really showed the lack of depth in that quarterback's room, and I think having Jackson Arnold in the room is going to push them even more. General Booty was out there as well, so it was good to see the quarterbacks throwing the football around, and it's going to be interesting to see the evolution of the position with Jackson Arnold in that room.
I don't know if anyone's talked enough about this, but they might have something in this Jackson Arnold, Eric. He throws a nice football. He was, and that can only mean so much, right? Like you said, it's just practice. They're in shorts, but he looks the part. He looks good. And an interesting question, as you laid out that depth chart, it might not be Jackson Arnold this fall, but is who those quarterbacks are going to throw to. You lose Marvin Mims from that receiving core. Weiss is gone, and it kind of leaves Jalil Farouk to be that presumed number one, and a lot of guys behind him to kind of fill in those other spots. But last year, Jalil Farouk, as maybe not the pinnacle or the focus point of the offense, was really like their playmaker in chief. And now it's a question of, can he step into that top role? Jeff Lebby, kind of said that the goal for each season is to have an 1,000-yard receiver. And I think if you were making betting odds today, March 22, 2023, it'd be him, Jalil Farouk, and going to be interesting, I guess, to see how he steps into that role. What did you make of his availability yesterday?
Yeah, Farouk is ready to be that number one guy. He learned a lot from some of his predecessors, especially Marvin Mims, to kind of how you handle yourself and how you handle those expectations and the work you need to put in to be that 1,000-yard receiver. And that was an interesting question when Lebby was asked that question about receivers. Did he want a lot of guys who could catch a lot of balls, or did he want that number one wideout that had 1,000-yard receiving seasons? And he was really quick to mention this stat. He said he's had 15,000-yard guys during his career. So He knew that number top of his head, how many 1,000-yard guys. And he said that's when they're at their best, is when they have that 1,000-yard guy. So we'll see if Farouk can be that guy.
And it does kind of jump out, because that could be a really easy time for Jeff Lebby to default and say, hey, we got a lot of really good guys in this room. We want to spread the football, even whether he means it or not. We've all heard that answer or type like it this time of year. So I think for him to say that somebody is going to have to step up and be that 1,000-yard receiver is telling of how they hope to operate this year, and to maybe look the same in the way they did last year with Marvin Mims. But there's guys behind him. There's Drake Stoops back again. There's JJ Hester and LV Bunkley Shelton, who we didn't see a lot of, if at all, last year. And same goes for some of those freshmen, or guys who were freshmen last year, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson. Let's see, I guess, who can step up and fill in after they've lost a couple of guys.
Those are two names you mentioned, the freshmen, that I'm really intrigued with Gibson and Anderson. What are they going to be like in year two? What did you learn from year one? And health wise, where's Anderson going to be at? It's going to be interesting to see how they go moving forward, how it's going to go. Now, I stayed with Coach Levy for a lot of the availability yesterday after practice. You had a chance to talk to Ted Roof, and Brent Venables during his press conference on Monday to kick off spring football talked about physicality. Is that something Coach Roof mentioned as well?
Yeah, I mean, his opening salvo was that they are way further ahead this year than they were this time last year, which again, it's what you'd want to hear as an OU fan, but you can really just feel in terms of how maybe shaky the ground was setting that foundation. This year it's set. So Ted Roof is back with a defense that has to be better, and they've improved positionally. And when you talk about that physicality, we're talking about up front. I mean, the Brent Venables statement was very clear. It was one of the most kind of straightforward. Sometimes a Brent Venables presser can, or an answer can get lengthy and vague, but he was direct. He said they were bullied up front physically, and they've got to be better. And so then you look at Trace Ford and Rondell Bothroyd, you look at Jacob Lacey from Notre Dame and Defon Sears in the middle. They've added there, and where Ted Roof went was maturity. He talked about these are guys that have done it in, if not every case, across that line, or those four guys. You're talking about probably 1 year and trying to prove something about their ability at the next level. So they're motivated, they have reason to be here, and they're mature. And I think that's what they needed up front, was depth, but physicality and maturity as well.
When we look at that defense, I think it's evident that Danny Stutzman will be a leader on this defense. He's a young player who's grown with the program. He learned a lot under Venables, made a token appearance at the press conference on with Coach Venables. But we had a chance to talk to Danny, and I know Ted Roof addressed this as well, just being that leader. I mean, all eyes are going to be on Stutzman. This is basically going to be his defense. And I asked him about physicality. How do you be physical as a football player? I mean, it's easy to say it, but how do you do it? And I thought his answer was interesting. He said, you fix it in practice. He said, leaders like himself have to really hold his teammates accountable. And then he pulled out a Kobe Bryant reference. He said, Kobe went to practice every day and he pushed everyone else. And to set that standard, Stutzman's going to be in charge of helping create that standard. So he's looking at Kobe Bryant, who's one of the all-time greats in basketball, about how he pushed his teammates. That's what Stutzman needs to do. And I think it was telling how his maturity level continues to grow each season and then each spring.
Yeah, that maturity level is what's so important, I think, because last year he broke out on the field, 126 tackles, led the Big 12, and they talked. Brent Venables and Ted Roof both talk about him taking some responsibility and accountability about his game. And we saw it translate. This year's kind of that next step, because there is no more Deshaun White and no more David Igwegbu. It's Danny Stutzman's linebacker unit to begin with. And then, as you said, really might be his defense. But you've got young guys. You've got Jaron Kanek. You've got Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, Shane Witter will be coming back from injury. But this is a group now that Danny Stutzman doesn't just need to lead in terms of, tackles and the stats, but as a pillar in the middle of that defense. And you look back at some of Brent Venables' defense at Clemson, even early on at his time at OU, there were always guys like a Danny Stutzman in the middle of it. And I think that's their vision, and he's going to get that opportunity in the fall.
Had a chance to talk to Billy Bowman, who has changed his number to number 2. Said that was his
Billy dream. Bowman, Woody Washington, switching numbers are killing me.
Woody's number 5 now. Bowman even had a number 2 chain on, so he's making the full. Said that he's been 2 all his life. So going back to 2 was big. From 4 years old to his freshman year was number 2. So he's made the switch back. But I thought it was interesting. He's talking about being a playmaker. I think we talk about leaders on this defense. Bowman is going to be the leader. It's hard to believe he's going to be a junior. It's hard to believe this is already his 3rd year. It seems like he just got here. And we talked about making playmakers on defense in the secondary. And he mentioned quickly that Oklahoma dropped 8 interceptions last year. He said they catch those 8 interceptions. They lead the nation in interceptions. So it continues to be a focus, takeaways. I think that's something that they're hoping the secondary can improve upon. And I think Bowman's got he's had his best when he has the football in his hands. So I think early on, he's looking at trying to be that playmaker that can change things in the defense.
He was the guy that really, there weren't a lot of times that defense looked particularly consistent or special last fall, but when it did, it happened when he was there, and you saw the difference when he was out. He's so important to what they do. And I kind of wonder, Brent Venables talked this week about what they've added to the secondary. There's more competition there now. There's guys, Reggie Pearson comes in, and maybe they'll play together, but everyone is kind of going to have to hold on to their spot, the returners, if they want it. And I think for someone like Billy Bowman, who you would not just pencil in, you might use a Sharpie into that, opening day secondary, that might still not be a bad thing. And as you said, freshman and sophomore Billy Bowman, junior year Billy Bowman might also have a larger role in this defense in terms of leadership. And we know that, just on some of the guys they lost, Justin Broyles, Deshaun White, leaders have walked out the door. So there's got to be some new ones.
And we did see Justin Broyles on the practice field yesterday, helping coach a little bit. So I thought that was pretty cool. Well, maybe helping coach. I don't know. What was at the practice field. So
there you go.
Well, Eli, I think we'll wrap it up here. We do have availability tomorrow. We expect to get a couple of head coaches or assistant coaches, including the one we haven't spoke to, Emmett Jones, the new wide receivers coach. So keep up with Eli and I as we, go through this. I think Oklahoma's going to plan 2 availabilities a week, so we'll have a lot of content coming up. I know we have a lot of videos up, the one-on-one interviews or the scrum interviews with the players, as well as Eli put up a sights and sounds from the opening day of practice. So keep up with everything on TulsaWorld.com.